Hi everybody, welcome to episode 71 of the Pins and Needles podcast. My name is Zoe. You can find me on Ravelry and on Instagram as Pins and Needles UK. And if you check the drop down box underneath this video, you will find the details of everything that I talk about today. You will find links to various things. You'll find my email address if you want to contact me. My coffee account details if you would like to support the podcast, and links to the Knit Tea retreat and Cartref yarn and all those wonderful things. So I am back. Goodness me, it's been over a month. I was saying to Dave the other day, I don't actually have time to go back to work when the government lets me open my gym again. I'm just so frantically busy, just getting through the days. But back in the saddle, back on YouTube, and my apologies for taking so long. What day is it today? It is Wednesday the 14th of April today, and I've recorded a few little bits and pieces for the podcast on and off over the last few weeks, including when I took a couple of the kids to Cosmeston Lakes, which is an old quarry just sort of 4 or 5 miles down the road from me, which is now a lake and a nature reserve. And I used to take the kids there a lot when they were very little because it was lovely for picnics, and they have a lovely kids playground in there. But it's just somewhere else nice to go. And when they've recently lifted the travel restrictions. At first it was stay at home, then they lifted it to stay local, so you could travel up to 5 miles. So that was when we went to Cosmeston. And a couple of days ago, they opened the border between Wales and England, which is lovely. I haven't had a chance to see my parents yet, but we will soon. Anyway, so the point is, here's some nice footage of Cosmeston Lakes. Okay, we're going to do poo sticks. Max, show the world your stick. That's my stick. Joss, have you got a stick? Right, hang on a sec, we've got to throw it over the wires. 1, 2, 3, go! Oh no, it went. Are they moving?
Yeah, very good.
We could be here quite a while to see who wins. This is not the best.
I'm very
filming into the sunlight.
I'm very confident in me putting my stick.
Let's go see if the poo sticks have arrived.
So, what does first prize get?
Internet glory.
I know everything.
No, there is no sign of the poo sticks.
No, it's going to come. It's going to come in 5 minutes.
Isn't it a gorgeous day though? Look at that. Let's crack on with finished objects. I have finally finished my Zoom socks. Now these aren't going to look fabulous on the blockers because they're for my dad and his feet are a bit bigger than my blockers, so the toes are wibbly. But yeah, I cast these on in January and I've only ever worked on them while I was on Zoom calls, whether that was sit and knits for the Knit Tea Society or just chatting with my friends. I listened to a talk with Carrie Westerman, Natalie Warner and Kate Atherley on Zoom. So I was knitting away on those at the same time as well, and they're finally done. just my standard pattern. I use my own vanilla sock pattern, which is called the As Requested Socks. There's a link down below. And 2x2 rib, heel flap and gusset, standard wedge toe. And the yarn I used was Opal Regenwald, which is a rainforest line in the colourway 9770, and it's inspired by that little bird. So yes, not too much more to say about those. I did mention it was my own sock design pattern. My As Requested sock pattern it's quite a bumper one. It has a complete pattern for plain socks on DPNs and another complete plain sock pattern for magic loop, and also a pretty hefty section at the front that explains the whys and the wherefores of sock knitting. It explains standard ratios, bits about tension, positive and negative ease, how to measure your feet to get a nice fitting sock. So as well as just giving you the patterns for double point and magic loop vanilla socks, there's lots of information in there as well about understanding how socks are supposed to fit and how you can play around with the numbers. And once you've got the hang of it, you can knit socks to knit any feet out of any weight yarn. There ends the plug for my sock pattern. Here is my properly finished and blocked Adventuresome Wrap by Ambah O'Brien, and I've had to film this bit stood up because otherwise you won't be able to see the gloriousness of it. So it turned out pretty long. I'm 6'1" and that's my wingspan, and about that much extra. And I don't need to wear it today because it's actually really warm today. But if I double it up and pull it through as a scarf, that's super cozy and loads of length, so it'll tuck nicely down the front of my coat. Or if you wanted to wear it as a wrap, I suppose it's just about wide enough as a wrap. That's what you're looking at. So the points come past my fingertips, nice shoulder coverage, covers all the top of my back. It would probably come down a little bit longer, but I'm wearing a hoodie, so it will interfere with the back of it a bit. But I'm absolutely thrilled with it. And yeah, perfect for any sort of scraps. Doesn't have to be an advent, obviously. You can knit anything you like with it. My next finished object is a gift for a very dear friend of mine, the lovely Jennie of Owl About Yarn. And I have knit her a fabulous pair of socks. This is the Crunkled Socks pattern by K.F. Jones. Kay Jones is one half of the Bakery Bears podcast. And I knitted my dad a pair of this pattern socks for last Christmas. And I made them scrappy. So if I hold them up close, it's sort of an alternating 2x2 rib. And I just used all of the same yarns that I used for my Adventuresome Wrap by Ambah O'Brien. I will probably have mentioned it previously when I show you the fully finished wrap. So I had quite a bit of yarn left over from that. So I decided that it would be perfect to make a pair of socks for Jennie with yarns from all of our closest friends in it. I can't remember the names of individual colourways of yarns, apart from a couple. I ordered some higher needles from Ellie of Crafthouse Magic. I've ordered a couple of times and she sent me some little minis. And so I've included some of those in here, and there's her Over the Rainbow colourway, which is this one here. It's like a pastel rainbow. And then Grellow Submarine, which is this one here, which is beautiful. And this one is a little bit sparkly. So I used all of these scraps to knit the socks up. As I said, most of them were leftovers from my Advent swap with our group of friends. I added in those couple from Ellie, and this one here is a yarn from Caroline, if you know Colourful Creativity by Caroline, and this is her very first ever retreat, Knitty Retreat colourway, Pinky's Out. And for the stripes that these four here, I used different yarns that I did from the Advent swap because I needed to have enough yarn to get through the gusset decreases because obviously the stitch count was higher. So the Grellow Submarine, this is some Knitty Retreat gift bag yarn from my party bunting socks. That's the one from Caroline. And the contrast heels, cuffs and toes was the same yarn that I used as the alternating band on my wrap. So I did a 1x1 cuff, heel flap and gusset and a standard wedge toe, and I really enjoyed knitting these, and I hope Jenny feels the love of all of her friends when she wears them. I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of ends to sew in. It really was an awful lot of ends, but I do love sewing an end, so it wasn't a problem. So yeah, and I still have some of these yarns left over, which is fabulous. I haven't worked on my scrappy mitre square blanket for ages, but I reckon that quite a few of the yarns in here I should be able to get a small mitered square out of, and there were a couple of yarns from the Advent calendar that I deliberately did not include in the socks, although they were yarns that Jenny had given us for the swap, because she'd marked on the label with those yarns that they were quite easy to felt, and I thought you don't want that for socks. So yeah, I knocked these out in probably 2 weeks and I'm absolutely thrilled with them, and hopefully Jenny will be too. Ooh, so if you cast a pair of socks off, you need to cast another pair on. And so I did. I was dashing out of the door for something, I can't remember what it was, and realised I had no knitting with me. So I shot upstairs to my bedroom, which is where all my stash lives, in a couple of big IKEA chests, and I just grabbed the first skein of yarn that was ready to go. And so I'm knitting another pair of Christmas socks, which is quite appropriately still in the winter themed project bag that my lovely friend Ruth gave to me, and this is by Bellica Yarns, and it has my Pingu Noot Noot badge that Jeanette gave me. So it's just another plain pair of vanilla socks, but I'm knitting them for me, finally, a pair for me, and it's West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in the Hollyberry colourway. And I bought this from Angela of Yarn and Yarns. I bought quite a bit of sock yarn from her at the end of last year. Or was it the beginning of this year? I can't remember. But this knits up beautifully. And I had previously bought from her a solid in the Signature 4-ply range. It might be Paprika. Is it Paprika, Ange? Have to correct me if I'm wrong. So contrast heels, cuffs and toes. Tuck my dangly ends in, and that is how far I've got. So there we go. I really love the colours in this sock. So you've got 2 shades of green and 2 shades of red. This one is a slightly orangier one, and that's a pretty classic Christmas red. And then that nice cream and green speckly bit in the middle. So I'm really enjoying these. There is no rush, you know, to get them done, but I'm really enjoying having some plain knitting, because the cardigan that I'm working on, I'll show you in a minute, is quite involved, so it's lovely to just have some brainless round and round. I have found that West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn comes up a little thinner than, for example, Opal. So I normally knit a 72 stitch sock for me, and if I do a plain vanilla 72 stitch sock with West Yorkshire Spinners, there's just a little bit more negative ease than I like in it, and the stitches are just a little bit stretched and it can spoil the look of the nice yarn. And I couldn't work out why that was. So I measured my dad's, the socks I just showed you, his Christmas socks, and I knit those on 2.25mm magic loop. And 2.25 is my standard sock needle. And when I measured the stitches per inch, I'm getting 10 stitches to an inch on 2.25 in magic loop. If I measure my DPN tension, I get 9 stitches to the inch. So I'm obviously knitting tighter on magic loop, and just that 1 stitch an inch difference around the entire sock adds up to almost an inch less circumference. Does that make sense? Which is why it was feeling a little tighter. So for this pair, I dug out my pair of 2.5mm Knit Pro Novas and knit a good bit of the leg, and I'm getting 9 stitches an inch again. So obviously I just need to go up a needle size for magic loop and stick with 2.25 for DPNs. I like Novas, they're fairly pointy, they're nice and slippy, which I like, but I really don't like the cable on these. But they'll do for now. So yeah, really enjoying these. I probably won't show you them again until I'm quite a bit further on, because it's just going to, excuse me, it's just going to be endless round and round knitting. So yeah, does anyone else have that much of a significant tension difference between magic loop and DPNs? I really was baffled. I assumed it was just because West Yorkshire yarn felt a little bit thinner, but having measured a few pairs, it's my tension. What a surprise, I'm the problem. On to works in progress. My main whip at the moment is my all over colourwork cardigan from the Marie Wallen Shetland book. I did quite a bit of this about this yarn and things in the previous episode, so I won't bore you with the details too much, but I will show you a picture of what I'm knitting. So that is what I'm knitting. Isn't it gorgeous? So it's all over colour work. There's no fastenings at the front. It's supposed to be an oversized sort of swing fronted cardigan. And I've been really enjoying this. This was sort of my one day when I'm good enough pattern. Have you got any of those in your queue or in the back of your mind or in a notebook? You think, when I'm a real knitter, I'll make that. This is my now I'm a real knitter cardigan. So I'm knitting it all in Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift, which is a pure Shetland 2-ply yarn, and it comes in 25-gram balls. And I have an awful lot of colours. And as I showed in my previous episode, just so I didn't confuse myself, I made myself a couple of shade cards, I suppose you could say, just so I knew exactly which was which. And I think the last time I showed you, all I had cast on, all I'd done was the very bottom border. So this is knitted completely in the round and steeked, and it's all rather scrunched up on the needles. But this is how far I've got. So this bottom border is moss stitch, and I did do a few more rows than the pattern called for. I think it asked for maybe 4 rounds, and I doubled it to 8. And then, as you can see, I finished all the colourwork band around the bottom, which I absolutely love doing. I just couldn't stop knitting it. And there were only, I think this entire section is about 60 odd rows, and there were maybe only 3 or 4 rows where you had to twist the yarns around each other to carry the floats. The vast majority is quite simple colour work. It's no more than 5 stitches between the colours. and there's only ever 2 colours in the row. So although it looks fancy, it's super simple. About half the colours I'm using are the same as the ones listed in the pattern. Others were out of stock, so I had to substitute. I'm now onto the main body, which is all these 2 shades of grey. This is the correct colourway as listed. So is the yellow, so are the greens. This natural is actually Cartref yarn. You don't need very much of it. And I didn't particularly want to order a whole ball of yarn for only a few rounds, so I'm just using up scraps. I think I had to swap out the blue and the raspberry colour as well, because they weren't the correct ones, but they are absolutely beautiful. Let me show you the front. So at the front, this little Emmable sheep stitch marker, which is from a set I bought from Ange, marks the beginning of my round. These little stitch markers here mark my steep section, and you can see these lines running down here, and that's where I will cut up the front at the end to make it into a cardigan. And I have marked out every repeat with these light bulb pins because it's quite a lot to keep track of. I don't particularly like light bulb stitch markers. They swivel as I push the stitches along onto the actual shaft of my needle. They seem to swivel round, and rather than the bulb bit sitting on my needle, it flips and I end up with the squeezy head bit getting stuck on it, which I'm not a fan of. But when you need that many on your needle, you need something light, so I just went for it. I'm knitting this on my higher steel interchangeables. I want to say 3.25s, but I could be wrong. And the reason I like them for this is because where the cables join the needles, the joints swivel. So if you're doing large in the round circumference knitting, just the knitting action I find can twist my cable up and you end up fighting it, but it swivels beautifully on these needles. And I'll probably cover this in acquisitions at the end, but I treated myself to some Cocoa Knits stitch stoppers. They're super simple, just little foam roundy bits. They come in a pack of lots of different sizes and colours, and it just keeps my stitches nice and secure on the needle. So I think I am maybe 1 round away from finishing the very first repeat of the body, and I've got a long way to go. And as I said, in this first coloured border, there were only a handful of rows that you needed to twist your yarn around. There are more of them in this main body pattern, but it's fine. It's not a problem as long as you remember to twist over one time and under the next. You don't get too tangled. I will show you my inside. Yeah, there we go. So it's nice and tidy. I haven't woven in all of my ends. I was having too much fun doing the knitting. So you can see I've made a start. I've woven in the ends on the bottom. And if I'm a bit too tired to face the actual colour work, I just grab an embroidery needle and just weave in some of my ends instead. I did have a bit of trouble because you're changing yarn so frequently on the border. I was getting some gaps where I was dropping one yarn and starting another, but it doesn't matter because that's always within the steek band. So as long as I weave the ends in nicely, it doesn't matter if there's the odd hole, because I'm going to cut straight up the front and add a button, like a border anyway. So yes, I'm really enjoying that, and that is the Yell cardigan by Marie Wallin. I'll tuck that back in its bag. On to a little bit of spinning now. I've been gone just over a month and I haven't done as much spinning as I would have liked. I'm taking part in the Fluff to Stuff spin and make along over on Instagram. That's being run by Mina Phillip, who is Knitting Expat, by Grace of Babbles Travelling Yarns, or is she just Babbles Yarns now on Instagram, I think, and the lovely Mars of Hey Brownberry. She's Hey Brownberry on Instagram and on YouTube. I have, however, finished my first spin. The whole idea of the spin along is that not only do you spin yarn for it, but you actually get it on your needles and knit it. And I haven't quite got that far yet. I decided to knit a sheep breeds blanket. So I would spin up lots of new to me sheep breeds and just learn about how the different fibres work, and then knit them up into blanket squares and stitch them all together at the end. I think I've settled on a pattern. There's a Tin Can Knits baby blanket that's lace, and because a lot of these breeds are going to be new to me, my yarn thickness consistency is not going to be the same across all the breeds. So I thought, well, if I have a lace square pattern, then I can use the blocking process to even out any differences in the finished square sizes. Did that make sense? So I started off with Humbug Jacob, and I used my Hilltop Cloud spinning gauge, and I found a bit of commercial yarn that I wanted to replicate. And as I was spinning the Jacob singles, I would every now and then stop, pull a length off the bobbin, let it curl back on itself, and hold it up against the appropriate numbered line on this card. And I was aiming for 14, which is a pretty standard DK weight. What I didn't account for is the puffing up factor of hand-dyed yarn. So when you've spun the yarn, you always soak it and give it a snap, and that can alter the thickness of the yarn. So it turns out Jacob poofs up. So I've actually ended up with an Aran weight. So out of 100 grams of fibre, I have ended up with 117 metres of yarn, which is a good Aran weight. So it's not the weight of yarn I was aiming for, but I really don't care. I loved spinning it. I loved spinning it. It was so much fun. I love how bouncy it is afterwards. And although I haven't ended up with the DK thickness I was aiming for, the yarn itself is really quite consistent. Is that focusing? I can't quite see. There we go. So it's heathered because the Jacob yarn was a mixture of grey, cream and a sort of a mid-grey brown colour. But the yarns themselves, the yarn itself has ended up consistently at an Aran weight. I've got two 50-gram skeins, and I really should print that pattern off and actually start knitting it up. So yeah, my verdict on Jacob is I love it. It's I felt Jacob yarn before. It's not buttered kittens, but it's very wearable for me. But then I have skin like a rhino, so. But yeah, I think Jacob is reasonably next to the skin soft for most people. So that was my first spin finished. And then I moved on to Wensleydale, which I did show you last time. And I just finished plying my first 50 grams yesterday. Here is the Jacob fibre I started with. Hopefully you can see the sheen on that. Wensleydale is a very long stapled fibre. If you look at a picture of a Wensleydale sheep, they have very long curly locks. It can be 6 to 10 inches. And so I've completed my first little skein. Now this has not been washed, and it's got just a slight twist to it, which means I've got the plying about right. I wanted to ply this a little more loosely, just so that you won't lose the shine in the finished yarn, and I think I've accomplished that quite well. I had no issues with breaking the singles when I was plying it, and it's a beautiful cream colour. There we go, that'll focus. and I absolutely love it. It's almost like silk. It's so shiny and so drapey. It would be lovely for a shawl. It feels denser than the Jacob, but as I said, it hasn't been washed yet. And in terms of, I haven't measured how many meters I've got out of this skein yet, and I haven't done the wraps per inch. But again, I was going for that number 14, but I think I didn't check quite as often and I wasn't concentrating quite as hard. So let's have a look. Yeah, I think at the moment it's a sport weight. If I hold it up, if I can do this. It's about number 16 on my spinning card, my spinning control card. So that's a sport so far, and that's an Aran. Maybe it will also puff up when it hits the water, but again, it's a blanket. It really doesn't matter. So yeah, I really enjoyed spinning it. It took me a little while to get the hang of remembering to keep my hands further apart as I was drafting. But once I'd got into the hang of it, it was fine. The other option is if it doesn't puff up to give me a definite DK or worsted, I can always hold these two skeins together, and then I would have a more appropriately sized square for the blanket. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe this could be edging afterwards or something like that. So today my electric eel wheel 6.0 arrived all the way from the States. And so I thought I'd film a bit of an opening of it. If you want to know more information about it, there's a really good Facebook group for electric eel wheels, and I haven't had one before, so I'm not going to be the best person to ask about anything. As you can see, the box arrived a little bit damaged. This is something that the producer Maurice knows about. So let's open it up and hope that everything survived the journey. I'm not sure which, is that the way I open it? Is there even more stuff to uncut? Maybe at the back, I don't know. Oh, so that's what's inside. Just going to turn around and make sure this is still all in shot. Yes. Okay, so I've got some sticky labels, my user manual with extra bits and bobs in it, including some orifice hooks. I think these are drive bands. That's an orifice reducer. There's some springs and things in there, and a WPI tool as well, which is good. Power cable. It's a fairly standard 2-pin plug, and Jim is now eating stuff under the table. So if there's odd noises, it's the dog. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I think he's made sure that everyone has the right sort of plug for their country of origin. Ooh, you get loads of bobbins in aqua purple and like an ivory colour. And similar to Acreworks bobbins, as you can see, they unscrew. And these are pretty jumbo bobbins. The bobbins for my Ashford Traditional, I can really only comfortably fit about 50 grams on them plied. So it'd be lovely to have some larger bobbins for like jumper quantity spins. So I think I've got half a dozen. 1, 2, yeah, 3 in a pack. So half a dozen lots of bobbins. There's my flyer. I must say, I would have expected bubble wrap all the way around the inside of the box and on the top to ensure that nothing moved, but it doesn't look like anything's damaged. So then these are the guides that you can move up and down the arms. I'm not sure what's in here. Foot pedal to start and stop the machine. I mean, obviously you can use your foot, or if you have it up on a top, there's no reason you couldn't operate it with your hand as well. There's another 2-prong adapter of some sort. And an AC adapter. Yeah, so this will be what plugs into the actual wheel, and then the mains charging will come into the other end, similar to like a laptop charger, I suppose. And then here's the main body of it in the box, and as you can see, only one bit of bubble wrap wrapping that up, which I wouldn't have thought would be sufficient. I certainly wouldn't ship anything like that. So here's the base of the unit, and here's the main wheel itself. It looks like everything is in decent nick, nothing looks broken. You can get a battery for this if you want to run it off a battery rather than needing to be plugged into a wall. And obviously this can be screwed on the bottom. As you can see, you've got the Z and the S direction switch up here, and a dial, which I'm assuming is for tension. Yeah, so there we go. Now, I'm not the most tech-minded of people, but that's everything that came in the box. And I will bust out the instruction manual and see if I can get it going. Okay, I had to look that up on the Facebook group, but that bit of string comes up and over the end of your bobbin, and there's a knob on this side to allow extra string out, and then you've got the tension spring here. So this is the drive band, the black rubbery one, and then this string is your tension. So yeah, it's Scotch tension, I suppose, same as my other one, just a bit more finely adjustable. So that's good. So I think I am going to put my base unit on, because as you can see, the underneath has all the gubbins, and that looks like delicate electronics to me, and I don't want to get fluff in it. So yeah, I'll have a go at putting that on. Okay, so that's everything set up now. You get 2 orifice hooks with this, and there's a handy magnet built in, so you can keep your orifice hook there. This little extra is a bobbin tension adjuster, which apparently is included more as an experiment, and you don't need to use it. I've got 2 spare bearings. These little rubber bands are spares for the sliding hook adjusters, if you can just see them. You see them just there. Still don't know what I need the Allen key for. I have a spare tension spring, a spare drive band, and there is my spare orifice hook. I've also been given a share card, so that's the website if you're interested in having a look, dreamingrobots.com. It's already got some Labrador hair on it, and it also has a handy spin card on the back. And I have another one which has a little mini ruler, centimetres and inches, and a wraps per inch guide, which would be more handy if it said what the universally accepted wraps per inch is for different thicknesses of yarn. So presumably this goes from cobweb all the way up to super bulky right at the very top. I know that sort of 14 is about DK, but you'd have to look it up from there. And then on the other side is a reminder of how to identify S and Z twist. So yeah, overall, given that I haven't tried it yet, it's looking really good. I'm really pleased with the size of the bobbins. Those look great. Love the idea of the foot switch, although obviously I haven't tried it yet. I like that you get sent the most basic spares, because obviously if it's coming from the States and you don't happen to live there, that's a bit of a pain. And yeah, power adapter and my leads and things like that. So now I just need to find some fibre and give it a little go. This is a little 10-gram sample of oatmeal BFL that Jenny gave me as part of my January Janvent this year. And I'm quite familiar with Bluefaced Leicester, so I thought that might be a good first fibre to try out this wheel with. It's a shame to unplait it though, it's so tidy. Finally managed to get that untwizzled, so I'm just going to give this a quick pre-draft. There's no problem with the fibre, I just like to pre-draft things a little. It's much easier on my dodgy arthritic hands, and it also just gives you a bit of a feel for the staple length. And I think I will probably spin this quite fine and then chain ply it. I haven't really decided what I'm going to make with the fibre I spin up from this advent, but a chain plied fingering weight is about as versatile as you can get, because I can of course always hold it double when I've got the finished yarn if I want something thicker. Nothing so far. Let's take that foot pedal out and see if it will just start. There we go. So there's two. I'm getting a bit of twist in there. I need a bit more tension because it's not pulling onto the bobbin. There we go, there's a bit of pull. Can you hear how beautiful and quiet that is? My traditional has got quite a squeak going on with it, so this is much quieter. I think I want a bit more tension in it, or I might just increase the speed a bit. Obviously the more tension you have on it, the greater wear there's going to be on the motor. So if I can get away with increasing my speed to get more twist in, rather than altering the tension, I think that should be more useful. Well, look at that, it's spinning beautifully straight out of the box. And I'm getting oatmeal BFL all over my tracksuit bottoms now. Oh, this is lovely fibre, Jen. Thank you. And if you can see this big cream disc at the front, that's my orifice reducer that I pointed at earlier. I rarely spin for anything heavier. I don't spin art yarns, I don't spin bulky yarns. So I will probably leave that orifice reducer in. And it just, as it says, it just reduces the size of the hole that your spun yarn goes through. And if there's much more space than you need there, the yarn can bounce around, which you don't want. So by popping that orifice reducer in, it should just help things go a little bit more smoothly. And there we go. There's my first ever singles. Well, I have to say, I'm pretty thrilled with that. Easy, super easy to, oh, I'm not in focus. Well, I have to say, I think that's pretty fantastic. Super easy to get it set up and spinning in under half an hour. It took me a bit longer because I was chatting to you. But yeah, really good price. Obviously, I don't know anything about the longevity of it, and I've only spun for 5 minutes, so I'll keep you updated. But yeah, so far, I'm absolutely thrilled with it. Last, but by no means least, is my acquisition section. Now, it's been 5-ish weeks, 6-ish weeks since I last recorded, so I've accumulated a bit of stuff, all through the kindness of my friends, which is lovely. The first thing I wanted to talk about was Meg's new pamphlet. If you don't know Meg, she is Mrs. M's Curiosity Cabinet on Instagram, and she has an audio podcast as well, which is absolutely worth listening to. I've met her a couple of times, there's never enough time to chat to Meg, and obviously I haven't seen her because there's no yarn shows at the moment, but she has recently started self-publishing her own little pamphlet. I will leave a link down below so you can find yourself a copy. I bought her first copy, and then she's released a second one. And each pamphlet is a short series of essays around a particular theme. And as well as knitting, Meg also sews. She's a very keen gardener. She's also a potter. And she's on Instagram for that as MK Ceramics. Again, I can't remember, there'll be links down below. And she has a very thoughtful and sustainable approach to all of her making, and her podcast and also her writing is all based around that. So if you're looking for something a little different, something that's a little deeper, to prod you to consider your own choices and the impact of your own making, I can highly recommend Meg's work. I don't want you to think it's all terribly serious and earnest, although, you know, she believes very much in what she does. It's really fun to listen to. But yeah, it's just a refreshingly alternative perspective on an awful lot of things. So I bought an issue of her latest magazine. And this particular episode is Mending and Experimenting. And she says on the front, essays on materials, the making instinct, and kinder living, which is excellent. And I'm just going to read you a little bit off the back. In episode 18 of Mrs. M's Curiosity Cabinet, that's her audio podcast, I talked about experimenting, not just in terms of disrupting conventional thinking about materials for sock knitting or exploring a different fibre crop in my small garden, but also how we as makers can experiment in shaping our communities. The more I think about my curiosity and making practice, the more I sense it is shaped by an instinct to experiment and a desire to mend, not just broken objects, but also systems and approaches that seem to have gone awry. As with the podcast, the essays in this pamphlet are not a blueprint and do not offer concrete answers. Rather, these musings and observations are intended to encourage us on our own making adventure, even when it involves new challenges and complex dilemmas, so we can cultivate a kind way of living for ourselves, others, and the planet. Now, Meg very kindly sent me a second copy. So I was going to give this away to one of you lovely viewers. I kept the original protective cardboard envelope that it came in to reuse, which will please Meg no end. So if you would like to have a free copy of this, I will post anywhere in the world, that's not a problem. Leave me a comment underneath this video and tell me how you are experimenting in your making. It might just be that you're trying new yarns. It might be like me, you're trying new breeds. You might be trying designing, experimenting with fit on socks. I don't mind. Let me know what you're working on, how you're experimenting within it, and I will pick a winner for the next podcast and send it out to you. I've had another Knit Crate box come through, and for anybody that's new, I'm part of their ambassador scheme, which means they send me yarn for free in return for talking about it on my podcast, although my opinions are my own. And if you sign up to their monthly subscription boxes using my link down below, it is an affiliate link. You will get a 20% discount on your first month. I get a percentage in return. And I can't remember which month this is. The yarn gets sent to my business address, my gym, which at the moment is closed. So it takes a while to get there from America, and then it gets forwarded on to my home address. So it's often over a month late. But this is a lovely skein of V. Delana Glam Sock by Knit Crate in the colourway Betrothed. And it's 70% superwash merino, 10% silk, 10% stellina and 10% nylon. And it's a fingering weight yarn. And it is just the most beautifully soft, pale pink colour with some sparkle in. Absolutely gorgeous. This would make a very glamorous pair of socks. Absolutely beautiful. So I'm not going to be keeping this. This is going to be going away into the giveaway box and the prize fund for the Knit Tea Retreat. And I wanted to wave that at you. Oh my goodness. Another acquisition is a wheel of socks. One of my group of knitting friends, Jeanette, works for the NHS, and so does her daughter, Becky. She works for the West Midlands Ambulance Service, and lots of us have got together and we're trying to get a pair of socks for everybody that works in the West Midlands Ambulance Service, whether they be ambulance drivers or support staff in the office. And if you watch Angela of Yarn and Yarn's podcast, loads of her viewers have donated money or yarn or finished socks for this good cause. And any yarn that's donated, we send up north to Charlie, who is Cranky Lady and also Yarn Ambassador. And she has a sock tube cranking service. So she has cranked one continuous sock snake out of 10 balls of yarn. And over the course of the next few months, I will be cutting these up and adding cuffs, heels and toes to them, and then sending them off to Jeanette. So there's a mixture of opal yarns in here. That rainbow one is a West Yorkshire Spinners from their cocktails range. I don't know what the other ones are. So yes, now that I've finished the socks for Jenny that I showed you earlier, I can get cracking on some of these. So I'll have plenty of socks to be working on. Speaking of Ange, it was my birthday in March and she ever so kindly bought me a present. And it's in this fabulous orange bag. Let me find the label so I can show you. This is a fluffy cloud of fibre. Look at that, it's a bat. So it's a sheet of fibre that's all rolled up in this beautiful creamy colourway. And this is some Llanwenog, which is a Welsh breed of sheep. And it's from purewelsh.co.uk. Pure Welsh, free range, rare breed pork and Llanwenog lamb, Llanwenog wool and honey. John Bishop and Sue Ulrich. There's their card. And again, I'll link it down below. And Angela knew about my Breeds blanket, and so she thought I might like some llanwenog. I've never spun from a bat, and it makes me nervous. It's a woolen preparation, which means that the fibres are all jumbled up. They're going every which way. They're not nicely aligned. So this is quite suited to a more woolen style of spinning. So I'm squeezing it occasionally, but ultimately ignoring it for now because it makes me panic slightly. I should just do it, shouldn't I? I should just do it. But anyway, it smells nice and sheepy. And I'm really looking forward to spinning this. So thank you, Ange. That's a lovely, lovely present. And last, oh, no, not quite. I can't show you that because it's got swear words on it. Also for my birthday, Charlie, who I mentioned earlier, who is Cranky Lady and the Yarn Ambassador, sent me these beautiful minis. These are all naturally dyed. With a special little label saying happy birthday on it. Yeah, there she is, Charlie Button. And she gathers fleece from her surrounding area, which is Lancashire, and she has it spun up. Some are breed specific yarns and others are a blend of what she can get. And she's also really started enjoying learning about natural dyeing. So I'm not sure which natural dyes they are, but they're gorgeous. So thank you very much for those, Charlie. And also, I have a new tote bag. Look at that, that's Ulf, the little Viking from Midwinter Yarns. Estelle was one of our guest speakers at our February Knit Tea retreat, which was based on Nordic knitting. And Jenny ordered some rag sock yarn from Estelle. And as well as sending Jenny the yarn, she very kindly also included a tote for each of us. And I kept it safe in my tiny envelope. An Ulf enamel pin badge. He's so cute. And look, his shield. It's not going to focus. There you are. His shield is a ball of yarn. So, sorry, it's all wobbly. I keep knocking the thing. So yes, this tote bag has turned into my podcasting bag. So when I finish things or stuff comes in that I want to show you and talk about, I pop it all in my tote bag. So I keep track of it all. So now that I've spoken to you about it, I can empty everything out and put it all away and start filling it up again. Last but by no means least, my lovely friend Katrin sent everyone in our little group of knitting friends an Easter gift. She claims she's terrible with birthdays, so she just sends everybody an Easter present and that's your lot, which I think is genius. And I got a proper Easter basket. Look at this. How cute is this? This is a bag by Fibre Rachel. And it's a really lovely sturdy canvas bag with a box bottom and rabbits on it, which is just about as Easter as you could get. And then the lining, these lovely flowers. And as well as the bag, I got a sheet of Emmable sheep stickers and a lovely card with a puffin on. And again, Angela sells these at Yarn and Yarns if you're interested. And a digital stitch counter, row counter, and you wrap the strap around your finger so you can just click it and you'll never lose it, which is very clever. And then this lovely little hanging decoration. Good friends, good yarn, good tea, good times. That's really lovely. And now I've shown you I can actually hang it up. I've been keeping it safe. And also some yarn. Now this is from Wool is the Answer. Lovely pair of ladies that run this business. They've sold several times at our Knit Tea Retreat marketplaces. They're an absolute hoot. And And this is 100 grams of superwash merino, 20% nylon and 5% stellina. And the colourway is Winter's Night, but is that not the most spring-like colourway? There's dashes of yellow, the blue of bluebells, the green of daffodil stalks, absolutely gorgeous. And then this chartreuse mini, which just picks out those colours in the main skein. Absolutely gorgeous. And the main colourway is Sparkle. I don't know if that's coming across on there. But yeah, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Catherine. Really lovely to have a nice yarny surprise. I'm not sure where I'm going to put my stickers though. They're very precious. I'll have to think about it and use them wisely. That's everything I've got to show you making wise. In terms of live chat, I mentioned that the COVID restrictions in Wales are being eased, so we can now travel around into England. We can meet each other in our gardens, so we can meet up outside. The shops reopened on Monday. My gym is still closed, but we're allowed to reopen on the 3rd of May, so not long to go. The kids, all 3 of the kids, went back to school in person 2 days ago. Honest to God, it was amazing. They've been doing home learning for ages. Conrad and Joss went back for about 10 days before Easter, but Max's years didn't. But they all went back in on Monday, and they're so pleased to see all their friends and have proper face-to-face teaching. So I've actually had, on Monday, Dave was out running errands and doing busy stuff, and the kids were at school. So I had several hours on my own in the house for the first time in I think a year, and it was bliss. Absolute bliss. And other than that, I haven't been up to a huge amount. We're still busy behind the scenes with the Knit Tea Retreat in Cartref yarn. We are going to be doing Wonderwool online festival later this month, and we have a super exciting new thing to share with you. So if you're a fan of 100% Welsh wool, if you're a fan of proper woolly wool and beautiful colours, go and find the Wonderwool Facebook group, because the festival's taking place within that group online. I'll try and link it down below. And keep an eye out and see if you can spot our limited edition fancy new thing that we'll be launching. Otherwise, we're just ticking over. Still haven't finished painting the hall, stairs and landing. Still haven't got round to ordering any carpet yet. But the weather's cheering up, the kids are back to school, and yeah, things are going okay. So thank you ever so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed our little catch up. As ever, I always promise to try and be back again in 2 weeks rather than 6 weeks, but we'll just have to see how that goes. And yeah, I hope you get some knitting time, some spinning time, and don't forget, leave me a comment below to be in with a chance of winning that copy of Meg's new pamphlet. All right, I will see you soon. Bye.